Hey everyone, in this video we're going to discuss everything you need to know before buying Jadeite Jade jewelry. We're going to discuss jade types, jade treatments, and simulants, and tips to avoid costly mistakes when shopping for jade. Rule number 1 on how not to buy jade. If it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. Natural, untreated jadeite jade can have a huge range of value from $100 to millions of dollars. If the asking price doesn't correlate with the quality of the piece, something is fishy. The product being presented as natural jadeite jade might be heavily treated or a simulant if it has the look of a $10,000 or more piece, but is being sold for only $1,000 or $2,000. Real quick, a lot of subscribers will message me about pieces on sale for $100 or $200, asking if I think the piece is real. Natural jadeite jade can absolutely be $100 or $200, but that price range of jade might not be considered gem quality, meaning it may have internal fractures, many noticeable inclusions, it might be off color, or most commonly, it might be opaque with large crystal sizes. If the piece being offered for $100 or $200 on Etsy is glowy and translucent with a vivid color, then no, it's not natural jadeite jade. But that doesn't mean you shouldn't buy it. If you love it, go ahead and get it. Just buy it knowing that it's probably dyed green quartz or another simulant or maybe even treated jade. You might say, am I getting a good deal? Well, the question is this item worth $100 to you? Value is an agreement between the seller and the buyer, and an item's value is based on the supply and the demand. I don't want to discourage anyone from buying any jewelry ever, but I do discourage sellers from lying about what they have. If having natural jadeite jade is important to you, shop with a trustworthy seller who offers a guarantee that their jade is untreated. In the case of nephrite, this is not important, as green nephrite jade jewelry is almost never treated. Simulants can be a problem though, which is why I've included links to vetted jade sellers in the video description. So, as you probably already know, there are two gemstones that should be gemologically sold as jade in the US: nephrite jade and jadeite jade. They are chemically different and are rarely confused with each other based on appearance, except in certain cases. Both jades can be black. Both jades can be white. Both jades can be lavender. Both jades can be yellow, and very high quality green nephrite can be confused with green jadeite jade. White nephrite can be more valuable than white jadeite jade, depending on factors such as quality and origin. And black jadeite jade can be more valuable than black nephrite jade. However, this isn't always the case. For the most part, green jadeite jade and green nephrite jade are usually very easy to distinguish visually. There is no wrong choice when it comes to jade. Buy the piece that you love that fits in the budget you have. And if you have any questions about nephrite jade, leave them in the chat or in the comment section if you're watching this after the fact. My advice about the nephrite versus jadeite thing is don't get too wrapped around the axle on hardness and toughness. Nephrite jade and jadeite jade both can range quite a bit in hardness. Hardness meaning resistance to scratching, and I'm referring to the Mohs scale of mineral hardness here. So nephrite is considered to range between a 5 and a 6, and jadeite jade is considered to range between a 6 and a 7, but there are exceptions to both. Hardness is resistance to scratching, and the diamond is the hardest gemstone to scratch. Diamond will still scratch if you rub it up against another diamond. So, as with all gemstones, it should be stored safely and separately from other jewelry. So for instance, you could bag it, like if you have like the teeny tiny Ziploc bags, you can bag them separately, or they make types of jewelry storage where you can like roll up your jewelry and keep it all separate. That way the pieces don't scratch each other. As for jadeite being slightly harder than nephrite, it's important to note that they can both be softer than quartz, and quartz dust is everywhere, so it's kind of moot. Anything softer than quartz being around a 7, may accumulate microscopic abrasions over time from the quartz dust that's just like in life, in the air and just on things. But it's not that big of a deal because sometimes it's not noticeable, and a lot of times the abrasions can be polished out by a lapidary. If you get a big scratch or if the abrasions build up and become visible to the naked eye, it can usually be dealt with pretty easily. You can just ask your local jeweler about it. The important thing to know is that hardness is not toughness. Toughness is resistance to breaking. Remember, hardness is resistance to scratching. And while both nephrite and jadeite jade are tougher than almost all other gemstones, diamond included, they're still gemstones and they should be handled with care. If you're too tough on your jewelry to have jade, then you're too tough on your jewelry to have jewelry, and you need to change your habits if you want to wear any fine jewelry without complications for a long time. If you guys have any questions about jade, please leave those questions in the chat. I'll be happy to answer any questions that you have. And if you see any pieces on screen that you might want to know a little bit more about, just stop me and I'll be happy to explain in detail. Let's go ahead and move on to rule number 2 on how not to buy jade. Don't trust a cert just because it's laminated. Anyone can laminate anything. Are there legitimate certs? Yes. Are some of them laminated? Yes, though not all of them are. The cert that I'm showing on screen right now is actually accurate. But it's complicated. It identifies the quartz bangle as quartz. And this was a quartz bangle that was sold to me on Amazon as jade. But it does say quartz on the cert, it just says it in Chinese. So if you aren't familiar with the Chinese language, you might see this and think that it says Jadeite Jade because it does say Jewelry Jade Identification Certificate at the top. But it's misleading. Like, it's not wrong. They can be wrong. Some of them can just be like fake or forged. But in this case, with this cert, it's not that it's lying. It's telling the truth. It's just telling the truth in a language that you might not be able to read. So it's kind of up to you as to like how helpful that actually is. I say this to mean just because it comes with a laminated piece of paper, that doesn't mean that it's natural. So do your research, use discretion, and shop with a trustworthy seller. If you're buying an expensive piece of Jadeite Jade secondhand and it comes with a cert, or what we call actually a gem report in the trade, then call up the lab that wrote the report and cross-reference the details to make sure that it's not a forgery. You can call GIA, like you can call AGL, you can call Mason K, and most other trustworthy labs to make sure that the report that you're looking at was issued authentically. So the reason for this type of content is not to scare you from buying jade, but actually the opposite. While there are a lot of treated jades and jade simulants being sold as natural jadeite jade, you can avoid being scammed, swindled, and bamboozled by learning about jade and shopping with a trustworthy seller. Price is a huge indicator of whether a stone is natural jadeite or a simulant, but there are other clues as well. So if you look on the screen on the left, this is aventurine quartz. It's very commonly sold as jade. And I believe sometimes it's even called, I want to say sometimes they call it Korean jade. Like they'll call it something like a type of jade that makes it sound more legitimate than it is. There's nothing wrong with buying aventurine quartz. Like, it's a beautiful stone. And if that's what you're wanting to buy, no problem. Like, aventurine quartz is really great, but it's not jade and it shouldn't be sold as jade at a jade price. So one of the ways that you can tell the difference is by looking at it under magnification. So if you have a handheld loupe, or if you can look at it just really closely with a microscope, or if you have really good vision, you should be able to see, if you look on the left here, the inclusions are pretty distinct in aventurine quartz, and sometimes you get tiny flecks of mica that actually look like glitter in the stone. And in fact, that glitter effect is so like closely connected with the stone aventurine that in gemology we actually call it aventurescence. So hopefully that's helpful. Many sellers will call quartz and other beautiful gemstones jade, especially online. One of the words for jade in Chinese is yu, which means beautiful stone. So you may see listings that say like agate jade, quartz jade, and serpentine jade. Like you'll see the word jade with it. These aren't nephrite jade or natural jadeite jade. You can sort of imagine that these products are actually being called agate beautiful stone, quartz beautiful stone, and so on. Often these pieces are priced appropriately and can make beautiful jewelry, so there's no reason not to buy them as long as you aren't buying them under a false pretense and thinking that you're getting a better deal than you really are. Remember, when it comes to jade, if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. And to be honest, we hear these stories all the time in the trade of customers who have purchased something online and they have spent a lot. Like, if you only spend $100 or $50, you still have a beautiful piece of jewelry. You probably paid what it was worth, and it might not be as heartbreaking as if you were to spend like $1,000 or $2,000 or $4,000 or $8,000 or $10,000, and that has happened. Like, I'm not making this up. And then you find out that what you bought wasn't natural jadeite jade. It wasn't as tough. It wasn't as valuable. It didn't have stable color. Like, the biggest reason that people find out that their jade isn't real is because they break it. High quality, especially translucent jadeite jade is extremely tough because to get that translucency over time, the metamorphism of the stone has compressed the crystals into tiny, tiny sizes with very little space between them, creating a compactness that could be likened to sand. You know, like if you were to compare, like, let's say you have a jar of rocks and then you have a jar of sand. Like the jar of sand is going to be a lot more dense. And if you try to like put pressure on it, those bonds are going to be a lot tighter than if you have rocks that have like a lot of space between them and can move. So in the case of jade that has formed metamorphically many, many times, the smaller crystal sizes results in a more translucent appearance, and therefore it's tougher. And so when we say jade is one of the toughest gemstones in the world, or actually jade is two of the toughest gemstones in the world, we're referring to the translucent jades, like the beautiful, valuable jades that, you know, when people think of jade that they imagine in their mind. It can range quite a bit in toughness, but my point is that if you buy treated jade, right, let's say it's been acid bleached and polymer impregnated or polymer resin or wax impregnated and dyed, right? So like in the case of that type of treatment, the treatment is taking an already brittle jade because it wasn't good enough quality to sell as is. It had to be treated, right? So you're taking what was already brittle jade, you're making it more brittle with the pressure of pushing polymer into existing fractures and expanding those fractures. So now you're making a much weaker, much more brittle jade. And then if you're not getting treated jade, right, let's say you got scammed and it's not treated jade, it might be dyed green quartz. Dyed green quartz cleaves, unlike jadeite jade, and it's overall a more brittle stone. It's going to break easier. So what ends up happening is people, they buy jade, they think it's jade, they accidentally break it, and then that's when they realize, oh shoot, I spent a lot of money and it wasn't actually natural jadeite jade, which is just so disappointing. So it really does happen. Like, I'm not trying to scare you. I don't want you to say, oh no, I don't want to buy jade because what if I get taken advantage of? I want to empower you to make the decision for that to not happen to you. So I hope that is helpful. Collectors in the chat, please share your wisdom. List any red flags that you've come across when shopping for jade that aren't necessarily indicators that the jade isn't real, but should probably inspire further questioning. So one of the red flags in the case of a mounted cabochon in a ring, it's a bit of a red flag if there isn't a hole in the metal underneath the stone. And so by that, what I mean is, let me show you this really. I don't know if you'll be able to see it, but like there's space. So you have the stone and it's mounted in the middle. And then between the stone and your finger, there is a hole. So like I can look at the underside of the ring and I can see the stone. Yeah. So when you can see the stone through that hole, first of all, that's a very good thing for cleaning purposes. Like if you have a ring that's been manufactured and it's just flat metal there and there's no through from the stone to the finger rail, then you're going to get a bunch of dirt underneath your stone. It's going to be gross and you'll literally never ever be able to clean it. But that's not why it's a red flag. The reason that it's a red flag is because when jade is tested for polymer, it's tested using like Raman spectroscopy or FTIR, which is a technology that uses laser. And the laser actually goes through one side of the jade and out the other. If you've backed it with metal or any kind of backing, the laser can't go through. And so it's kind of a red flag. It's not necessarily, oh, this is treated jade, because it could have just been like an oversight on the part of the manufacturer. But in all likelihood, it might be that they didn't want you to be able to test it, so they put it in a mounting that was backed. So if there's metal touching the finger rail and there's no space where you can see the stone for a laser to go through, kind of a red flag. And again, collectors in the chat, share your red flags. What are things to look for when you're shopping for jade? Another one I wanted to mention is like a flat back. So in this video here on the left, you can see what's called a double cab. A double cab means that it is a cabochon. It's rounded on top and it's rounded on bottom. In jade specifically, you see this in higher end stones. So maybe not $100 or $200 stone, but in like multi-$1,000 loose cabochons, like if it's pretty valuable, you're going to have usually, not always, usually a double cab, especially if it was cut in China. When it has an expensive price tag on it and it's flat on the bottom, that's a little fishy. And again, this isn't like a universal rule. It's just something kind of weird that you might want to be aware of. And that's because treated jade, like in the case of this B+ C Jade example on the right that has been acid bleached and then polymer wax or resin impregnated and dyed, they initially probably were charging a high price for it, even though it should be worth $20 or less. And it's flat on the back. And that's because like they just didn't have the regard, like the reverence for this stone, for this material, because it's treated. So again, all of my collectors in the chat, I want to hear your opinions. I want to hear what you think. I also wanted to mention, like, if a seller doesn't want to send you additional photos or videos of a piece, that could be a red flag. Basically, no matter what the stone is. Like, that doesn't even necessarily apply to jade. That could be pretty much anything. But in the case of jade, like, images and product listings are often edited. Well, I say that. Sometimes they're edited to improve the appearance and the like overall color of the stone. But here's something else I'm noticing. Jade photographs better than it looks in person a lot of times, and especially in natural light. So let's say, and I'm not saying that you're a sketchy seller because you take pictures in natural light. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying there are sellers who take a piece of like jade and then they hold it next to a window and they take a picture in a unique lighting condition that does not accurately represent what it normally looks like in day-to-day life. And that can be misleading, and therefore the product image that you're seeing on the website might look like a much higher valued product than what you will actually end up getting. And so I don't even know that sellers necessarily do it on purpose. They probably want it to look nice. And to be honest, when you take jade into natural light, it does look really nice, and jade does look better in natural light. Keep that in mind, especially green jade. So it's not that that's not necessarily them being sketchy, but you, the customer, should be aware of that and ask for additional pictures. Ask to see it in natural light. Ask to see it in fluorescent light. Ask them to like put it under a table. This is a trick I learned from Dake's Peculiar Procure. Like if like put it under, have them put it under a table where it's like dark and there's no direct light coming to the stone, and take a picture that way, because that's actually going to give you a really good idea. A seller who isn't drop shipping and isn't trying to hide something will work with you by sending you additional photos and videos upon request. Now, don't harass a seller. Like don't have unnecessary or ridiculous requests, but it is more than reasonable if you're shopping online. Oh my gosh, it's more than reasonable for you to ask for additional photos and videos. It should be expected. And if a seller tries to give you lip about it, I think that's sketchy, and that doesn't mean that they're selling fake jade, and it doesn't necessarily mean that they're selling overpriced jade for what it is. It's just, it's weird, and it could be that. So it's something to be aware of. And I say that not just for jade, I say that for literally any sort of fine jewelry that you would buy online. If it's a seller that's not drop shipping, there's no reason that they can't bust out their smartphone and take some additional photos and videos. Dyed green quartz is often, oh wait, this is treated jade. My bad. This is dyed green quartz. Dyed green quartz is often sold as natural jade online, but we also see a lot of customers accidentally buying treated jade, most commonly B plus C jade, which is jade that has been acid bleached, polymer, resin, or wax impregnated, and then dyed. This is a very common modern treatment used on brittle, pale, and highly fractured jadeite jade that would otherwise not be suitable for jewelry. Price is the biggest indicator that the piece you want to buy is treated. For instance, if it's extremely vivid and highly translucent and only selling for $800, $1,000, or $2,000, it's probably undisclosed B plus C jade. Some sellers do disclose that treatment and will likely sell this type of product for like $50 or so. And that's not a bad thing. Like it's not wrong for a seller to sell treated jade as long as they're disclosing it. It's not cool, and it's actually like it's against FTC regulations if you're taking a treated stone and then you're selling it as natural, and it's much worse if you're selling it for a natural price, which really is honestly what happens a lot. So if you're concerned that the jadeite jade that you're buying might be treated, it is more than fair to ask the seller these questions. Is this jadeite jade natural or treated? And I do want to clarify, if you're buying nephrite jade, you really don't have to ask that. So the term natural in gemology can take on different meanings depending on the stone. In the case of natural diamonds, the term natural diamond refers to a diamond that was mined in the earth as opposed to a lab-grown diamond. In the case of natural pearls, the term natural pearl means it means that the mollusk produced the pearl without human intervention, as opposed to cultured meaning that the mollusk, which is still a live mollusk, did produce the pearl with human intervention. In the case of other gemstones, natural is a treatment code or an enhancement code designated by AGTA, the American Gem Trade Association. And as a treatment code or an enhancement code, natural, which is signified by the letter N, so you'll see like N sometimes next to a gemstone, it means it's natural. Natural means untreated. So with jadeite jade, you should always ask. With nephrite jade, you don't have to ask. Nephrite jade won't be treated if it's green and if it's in jewelry. What you might run into is like pebbles, like rough, like river pebbles or statuary or like carvings in China that are not necessarily jewelry, but more like art carvings. If it's white, it might have red dye on it, and that's considered a treatment, and that's to make it look like it's from a different origin than from where it really is. But as far as like green nephrite jade, if there's dyed green nephrite jade, I don't even know about it. I haven't even seen it. It might exist, but it's clearly not common. You might see treatments on green nephrite jade that are not color altering. You might see treatments that are maybe like a coating that might fluoresce under a UV light. And in that case, again, it's not changing the color. It's just probably kind of weird and maybe a little bit annoying, but not necessarily a huge problem. So don't be concerned about your nephrite jade being treated. Be very concerned about your jadeite jade possibly being treated. And again, the reason that you don't want treated nephrite jade is because treated nephrite jade is more brittle, less valuable, and in the cases where it's been acid bleached, supposedly I've heard that people have had acid leak onto their skin. And I did see some videos online, and I totally believe this, from Jane, and she was showing examples of broken bangles that had been acid bleached, and she said you could smell them, like they had like a scent, like an odor. That kind of bothered me. So I feel like that's a pretty good reason not to buy treated jade, but more importantly, it's a good reason not to pay a natural price for a treated jade, because there is a significant value difference. And in the case of polymer impregnated jade is usually going to be about 5 to 10% the value of its natural counterpart, whereas like dyed jade is probably only going to be worth like $20 or $50, probably less than $100, depending on what it is, depending on what the seller, sells it for. But then, yeah, I don't know where I was going with that, but basically buy natural, make sure that it's natural, ask the seller, is this natural? Is this treated? And if they're like, no, it's natural, be like, great. Do you have a gem report for this stone? And that's a completely fair question to ask. Now, some companies, so for instance, Mason K has internal testing because they have an on-staff gemologist. It's actually the owner of the company, Jeff Mason. And so they offer a guarantee because they do internal testing. Other companies, especially like if it's an expensive piece, by the way, I don't feel like you need to ask for a gem report in general from other sellers if it's only like $100 or $200 or $500 piece, because it costs a lot of money. Like if you don't do the internal testing like Mason K does, if you're another company, it might cost a lot of money to get that gem report, and so that has to be factored into the price. And so sometimes they don't necessarily offer a gem report, but you can request it. It just might incur an additional fee to have that done. So it's more important to ask for a gem report if it's a valuable or expensive piece of jade. So I felt like I should clarify that. If the seller is a pawn shop, or if they're just like a person on Facebook Marketplace and they have no way of knowing themselves whether the piece is natural or treated, you can advise them, and I would actually recommend this. You can advise them to send the piece in to have it tested. Like for instance, they could send it to Mason K Jade for testing and valuation before you buy it. If the seller at the pawn shop or on Facebook Marketplace, etc., is resistant, because and that's not necessarily a red flag because they might not know what they have, right? And maybe they're offering a really low price anyways, but let's say they're resistant because the price is low anyways and they just want to sell it quickly. Ask to see the jade under a black light. It may fluoresce really vividly if it's been dyed, but not always. And I do want to clarify, like, just because it doesn't fluoresce, that doesn't mean it's not treated. A lot of treated jade doesn't fluoresce, but even though natural jade will fluoresce slightly, if you shine a UV light or a black light on jade and it glows really vivid, like it fluoresces really, really bright, treated. There's something up. There's something has been done. And likely, in all likelihood, it's a color altering treatment. And like I said, I have seen Nephrite jade where there has been treatment that does fluoresce under UV light, but it's not color altering. So I don't know what all is out there, but I do think it's fishy. If it doesn't fluoresce and the price is extremely low, it might be worth it to you to purchase the piece and then send it to Mason K for testing. Bonus points if the seller will give you a refund if it turns out to be treated. So that's definitely something that you could work out with the seller. I'm taking a look at the chat. How to identify jade at home. Great question. I actually have a lot of videos that explain identifying jade at home, and I love to offer this disclaimer before people get too deep into it. If you Google how to test jade at home, a whole bunch of advice comes up and it sounds really good. It'll say, oh, is it cold? Is it heavy? Does it break if you throw it on the ground? It's literally on the internet. And they have all this advice. They'll say, wrap a piece of hair around it and light it on fire. And if it doesn't burn, and it's not jade. There's all kinds of nonsense out there. And basically just like disregard most of the stuff that comes up on Google. And I do have videos. I have a recent live video that's about an hour long where I really dive into this topic. I have a shorter, like probably closer to 10-minute video called Real versus Fake Jade, How to Tell the Difference, that explains home testing. But the message in all of my videos about home testing is that home testing doesn't work. So you can watch them. I do recommend it, but I can save you some time and say that for the most part, if it looks natural, if it looks like it is not treated, you should really send it in to have it tested. Mason K Jade in Colorado is who I have test all of my stuff. And I send things to them, or if I'm in Colorado, I will take it to them because I know them and they're amazing people, by the way. And so you can send stuff to Mason K and they can test it. So what Mason K can do is they can tell you if it's Jadeite Jade. They can tell you if the Jadeite Jade is treated or natural, and they can give you a value. Like they can tell you what your Jadeite Jade is worth. So that's something that labs don't normally offer. And probably shouldn't in a lot of cases, like for other labs, because they're not selling it, so they don't necessarily know what the market. Anyways, If you just want identification, if you just want to like, you want to know what the stone is, like let's say it's not Jadeite Jade, you want to know what it is, then you can send it to GIA or AGL or any other reputable, trustworthy gem lab. And if you're not in the US, maybe ask, find out who the reputable lab is. If you are in the US, you don't really have to do that research yourself. You can just walk into your local independent jewelry store and ask for their advice. And a lot of times they can send your piece in for testing for you. So that's also really awesome. Steven, my wife and I going to are you really? You're going to the Guatemalan jade mines in a few weeks? Oh my gosh, what is the best way to find real jade in the river? Take a hammer. Steven, where are you going? Are you going to Hacienda Santiago? Because they will guide you. They will be able to help you like find the jade. You are? Are you really? He says, yup. Oh my gosh. Well, then you don't need any tips. You'll have the experts right there with you. Hacienda Santiago. Oh my gosh, I'm so jealous. So I am going to go. I don't know when. I have my heart set. I am going to go to Hacienda Santiago. I just don't have any firm plans. Steven, I'm so happy for you and your wife. And I want to know everything about your trip. You should join the Discord. Everybody should join the Discord, but there's a link in the description for joining our Jewels of the Trade Discord server. And it's a community of jade lovers, and we share photos and all kinds of stuff. I would love for you to share information about your experience in the Discord, because I am so excited about Hacienda Santiago. And I absolutely adore Mary Lou Ridinger. She and her husband, Jay Ridinger, had actually rediscovered the source of Guatemalan Jadeite Jade in the 1970s. She has come on my channel before and collaborated with me on videos. I just think she's like the coolest ever. And so, I'm so excited for you. I'm so happy for you. Steven says, will do. Thanks, Steven. Awesome. 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 So, and then I also wanted to mention, like, if you're buying jade from a pawn shop or like a Facebook marketplace seller or somebody who doesn't know, like they don't know if it's actual jade, and maybe they don't want to have it tested, and you're not sure if you want to risk buying the piece and then having it tested and then it might turn out not to be jade, right? If that's the situation that you're in, another piece of advice is that if you're buying a bangle that is both translucent and not fractured, you can hang it from a piece of string and you can tap it, and if it makes a beautiful ping sound, that is a decent indicator that it is not treated jade. Now, it could still be quartz, so it's not like a for sure thing. But if you're buying from a pawn shop, they might have a refractometer, so a pawn shop might be able to determine if it's quartz or jade. Maybe, possibly, maybe not. It is kind of hard. It's a skill, but they might be able to tell you that. And then, yeah, if it is a translucent, unfractured bangle and it pings, then that's a pretty good sign. So just a little tip, just a little bit of advice. And if you have questions, like if you are wanting to buy jade and you're maybe uncomfortable or scared, please ask any questions that you have. I will be more than happy to answer them. So let's talk about rule number 3 on how not to buy jade. Don't buy it because you think it's an investment. Buy it because you love it and because you want to wear it. Honestly, if a seller tries to talk you into jade as an investment, I think that's kind of fishy. And maybe it's not. Maybe it's, I don't know the situation, but it seems iffy. It seems iffy. It can be hard to sell jade secondhand because of certain cultural beliefs. So there are people who believe that you shouldn't wear someone else's jade. And so there's some stuff there. And then also because many discerning jade customers won't risk buying treated jade at a natural price, they might not want to buy it secondhand. So I'm not saying you can't buy jade and sell it secondhand. You absolutely can. And I've bought jade secondhand. I know a lot of people that have bought jade secondhand, and sometimes there's great deals to be found, and I don't want to discourage that. I've known people when I worked in a jewelry store. I had a lot of customers who would buy other types of jewelry, particularly diamond jewelry, and then they would try and sell it on Facebook Marketplace, or actually at that time it was Craigslist, right? They'd try to sell it on Craigslist and nobody would buy it. And part of it is because when you want to buy jewelry, why do you go to a jewelry store? You go to a jewelry store because you want the guarantee, you want the quality, you want it to be you want it to have been checked under a loop and tested and made sure that everything is copacetic, right? You want somebody that can offer you repairs and advice, like all of the amazing things that come with a jewelry store. That's a lot of what you're paying for when you buy jewelry. And if you buy an expensive piece of jewelry from somebody off the street, you're not getting the warranty, you're not getting repairs. And so there's additional risk, there's additional hassle. You don't necessarily know the condition of the piece that you're buying. They might have been really hard on it. I've known people who bought a piece of jewelry off the street. And when I say off the street, I mean like off of Facebook Marketplace or Craigslist or something like that. And then stones just start falling out and the filigree caves in and like the shank is worn thin. And now they have to spend $600 to get the shank redone. And there's just stuff. So I'm not saying that people won't buy jade from you secondhand. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that it is always harder to sell jewelry secondhand because customers often want the guarantees that come with shopping from a jewelry store. So I should also note that mid-grade jewelry isn't like the luxury watch market or the ultra fine color diamond market. Mid-grade jewelry, so like anything between $100 and $100,000, whether it's a jade bangle, well, maybe not $100,000. Mid-grade jewelry meaning like not ultra fine, but still fine jewelry. Whether it's a jade bangle or an engagement ring, it can rarely be sold for what you pay for it. Usually when you sell jewelry you've already bought from a retail seller, you might get half of what you paid out of it just because you can't offer the person you're selling to all the luxuries that they would get from a brick and mortar independent retailer, like a warranty and repairs and advice and meaningful guarantee of quality and stuff like that. But it's just different. It's just like it's a different type of secondhand market. And I think that should be understood if you're wanting to buy jewelry as an investment. So I personally don't endorse buying jewelry as an investment because we don't know what the future holds. And I have known plenty of people who've bought jewelry and then sold it for more than what they paid for it. That does happen, but I can't recommend it because I've seen the opposite happen too. And that's not, I'm not even talking about jade at all, actually. Like that's just in general. That's just the fine jewelry market in general. So this is actually a good example. This jade butterfly ring was sold to me from a seller that was not Mason K or an independent brick and mortar jewelry store. And the seller did not disclose that this ring, look, it looks fine. You're looking at it. It looks fine. It has a chipped stone and it has a loose stone. So, I mean, I could tell, but someone outside of the jewelry industry might not have been able to and may have thought that they were getting a good deal when they actually weren't. Condition matters. Like the condition of the piece that you're buying matters, because when you buy a piece of jewelry new, in a few years, depending on how you wear it, the prongs are going to need to be retipped. The shank might have to be reshanked. The filigree or the gallery might have to be built up. Stones might have to be tightened, or stones might be chipped and need to be replaced. And one of the reasons that you're supposed to take your jewelry to a independent retail jeweler every 6 months to have your jewelry cleaned and checked, which is usually free, by the way, is because they have a trained eye to detect like issues or potential issues in the condition of jewelry. You, the shopper, because if you have another job and this isn't like your full-time gig, you might not know what to look for, or you might not have a loop, like you might not know. And anyways, you should lean on the expertise of a local independent jewelry store and be aware that just because something is a low price, that doesn't necessarily mean it's a good deal. Because if it's a low price, but it's in poor condition, it's a bad deal because you're going to have to spend so much on repairs. So, and again, well, maybe not again, but I should clarify that just because you have to spend on repairs doesn't mean that you got a bad deal either. So like in the case of estate jewelry, sometimes people buy estate jewelry, and when you buy estate jewelry, it's the condition that the seller bought it in. So it's actually to be expected that there's going to be scratches that might need to be polished out, stones that might need to be tightened, prongs that might need to be retipped. That's all really normal with estate jewelry, and you usually are getting a pretty good deal with estate jewelry, even when you factor in the repairs, but it depends. You want to really know the seller, ask the seller, have a seller that you trust, knows the condition of the piece, and then, you can do the math. So, shop with a seller that you trust. What's the best way to learn the jade market? Like pricing? So I would say, this is going to sound biased, but it's not. Visit the Mason K website. Go to mkjadejewelry.com because you can get a really good idea. When you look at Mason K's product, you know for certain that these pieces are natural, that they're guaranteed untreated because they test them in-house. So it's a really, really good way to see what the price of a particular natural jade piece should be based on the quality and condition. So I hope that that's helpful. It is a little tricky getting to know the jade market because there are nuances in quality that can't necessarily be conveyed in images and video, because as I said earlier, a lot of times jade does look better on camera, and it does help to see it in person. If your local independent jewelry store carries natural jade, they are your best resource because you can see the pieces in person and you can talk to a gemologist or expert there and gain a better understanding of jade's quality and value factors and pricing. So take advantage of your local jeweler if they have a knowledge of jade. Take advantage of the Mason K website for sure. And to be honest, like, you can call Mason K. They're really nice people. I do it. I call them, ask them questions all the time. Like, you can call or you can email them and reach out with any questions that you have. And so there are resources. I have a lot of videos on this channel that feature different colors, styles, and qualities of jade. And I try, when I know the prices, I try to put the prices on there. That way people can kind of build a frame of reference, because it is hard. Like, part of not getting swindled is being able to detect if the price and the value don't match. A good rule of thumb is that if it seems like really inexpensive, like if it's like, it depends on the piece. It really depends on the color and other factors and stuff. But if it's highly translucent material, but it's really, really affordable, that's usually a red flag. And so I think you just kind of build up a frame of reference, the more jade and the more jade prices that you see. So just as a side note, like, low grade jewelry is usually worth very little secondhand. So please be careful if you're buying jewelry like on cruise ships or in department stores. And that's why I always recommend to shop with an independent jewelry store, because like, personally, I really, really don't believe in chain stores and like departments. Not chain stores. I shouldn't say that, because there are chains of family-owned jewelry stores that are fantastic. But like, without naming names, like I can't name names of stores, but you know what I'm talking about. Like the big chain stores and the big department stores where there's like thousands of them. Those types of stores, I don't like their jewelry. When I worked in a jewelry store, we were always repairing their jewelry, and it was sad because customers would spend a lot of money, and then like 6 months later, they would need tons of repairs and they'd be super costly. It was very frustrating. So I have issues. I don't have issues with all cruise ships, because cruise ships can sell really good jewelry. They can sell really bad jewelry, but they can also sell really good jewelry. But to this day, I have never seen good quality jewelry from a department store. So I will say, like, don't refer for jade pricing. Don't refer to department stores for jade pricing. Or really just, I don't know, don't buy jewelry at department stores. That's what I say. I'm a gemologist that mostly understands jade, but I'm struggling to understand the market. Sneeby, do you work in a jewelry store? Are you in our Discord? You should join the Discord, because like, if you're a gemologist and you're in the trade, there even like there's a lot of resources that I'd be glad to recommend to you. So there is a link in the description if you want to join the Jewels of the Trade Discord server. We can definitely talk about that. So that's awesome. A fellow gemologist. Nice to have you here. Welcome. That's so exciting. So exciting. I do have some more tips. I have some more like general advice. For instance, just because jade is from China, that doesn't mean that it's real jade, right? Or that it's natural jade, because a lot of people don't realize that a lot of treated jade actually comes from China. With that being said, just because a store is in a Chinatown in your city, that also doesn't mean that it's natural jade. And it doesn't mean that it's not. It's just that your trust in a seller should be based on their company's individual standards and experience. or the vendors that they use. Like if you're shopping with a local independent jewelry store and they source from Mason K, well, you know that the pieces from Mason K are going to be natural, right? It kind of like that. So don't just blindly trust jade just because it's from China or from a Chinatown store. Don't ever be afraid to ask the seller questions. You are not annoying them. They want to help you. Jade is very specialized. Nephrite and Jadeite Jade are valued very differently. So jade in jewelry is valued differently than jade in art. Jade in statuary is valued differently than jade in the rough. Jade is more than just a gemstone, and there are many categories under the jade umbrella, each with their own standards for valuation. A jade jewelry professional might not be able to help you with jade statuary and vice versa. And actually, a lot of Jadeite Jade experts are not Nephrite Jade experts and vice versa. And not all appraisers are Jade experts. Not all gemologists are Jade experts. And not all Jade experts are appraisers. It's very specialized. So don't be dismayed if you reach out to a professional with a question and they refer you to someone else. Like, that's actually a pretty good sign. For instance, your local jewelry store might have a gemologist on staff who is a jade expert, but if not, they may choose to refer you to Mason K, particularly if you need jade testing or valuing. And it's actually better if a professional refers you to someone else than if they are uncertain and try and, do business with you without necessarily knowing for sure. So jade also should not be a certain value just because it's a certain color. There are a range of prices for each color of jade. There's low quality and high quality in all the colors of jade. There's affordable and expensive in all the colors. So you can't say, well, how much is lavender jade or how much is green jade? Because there's going to be a range from low to high, or at Mason K, we say from fun to fine, right? In all of the colors. And I actually addressed this in a video called Jade Value by Color, which is linked in the description. Sorry, guys, I'm reading the chat. Yeah, awesome. Sneeby, it would be great to have you in the Discord. I think you're really going to like it. The Discord's awesome because a lot of people share photos from their collection, and there's a lot of really experienced collectors that share advice and stuff like that. So it's a blast. I love it. What other advice do I have? So, let's talk about tricolor pieces. So like, let's say you have a bangle that is 3 colors, like maybe it's lavender and red and green. That's highly, highly, highly unusual. So that is one of those things to look out for. If it seems too good to be true, it probably is. If you see something that seems like it would be really rare or really high quality or really expensive and it's being sold for a weirdly low price, it's a red flag. And a tricolor anything is probably a pretty good example of that, especially if you have like any sort of vividness or richness in the colors. I would say like a lot of treated jade seems to be tricolor or bicolor, where it's 2 colors. You get a feel for it as you see more jade, like as you kind of like experience like more treated jade and more natural jade, you'll kind of get a sense. And honestly, like if you just scroll through Amazon, it's going to give you a really good idea of what treated jade and fake jade looks like. Just type in jade and see what comes up. And the thing is with Amazon though, like they do usually say like agate jade or quartz jade or something. So you can pretty quickly tell that it's not jade, even though it says the word jade. And that goes back to what I said earlier about jade meaning beautiful stone. But you will occasionally stumble on non-jade terminology like meta jade. Meta jade should not be used for natural jade. That's not a term that you should see if you're shopping for real or natural, genuine, untreated Jadeite jade. Sometimes you'll see sellers that are using terms like natural jade or genuine jade or imperial jade, but they don't offer any sort of guarantee or they don't offer a return policy. That's a little sketchy. That's kind of something to look out for too as a possible red flag. And then there are specific terms that are usually specifically used for jade simulants. So Transvaal jade, Korean jade. Korean jade's a tricky one because there is Korean nephrite jade. That's a real thing and it's beautiful. But so, like sometimes you'll see a Jadeite jade simulant being called Korean jade. Australian jade is one that you might see. And again, There is jade from Australia, but I believe it's also a trade term for, I want to say chrysoprase. One of the quartzes, it's called Australian jade. So it does say jade in the title, but it's probably not. A lot of times if you see terms like that. And then Queensland jade is another one. If you see something called Queensland jade, probably not. Natural jadeite jade. Keep in mind as you're shopping online, a lot of gemstones are represented as jade. A lot. So just check the boxes. Make sure it's jadeite jade or nephrite jade if that's what you're shopping for. Make sure that it's natural. Make sure that it comes with a guarantee, that it's either been tested and has a gem report, or been tested and has a guarantee, or if it hasn't been tested, that's okay too, as long as the seller will take it back. Like, as long as they have a really good return policy and you trust that you have recourse if this seller does you dirty. So that's my advice on how not to buy jade. I hope it didn't sound too negative. It really is easy to find natural, delicious, genuine jadeite jade. You just need to be shopping for fair prices and making sure that you're looking towards sellers who are knowledgeable and can guarantee that what they're selling is what they say it is. So we'll be back again next Tuesday at 8 o'clock Central Standard Time. Thanks for hanging out with me, guys. Leave any comments or any questions that I didn't answer in the comments. Thanks. Bye.